phobia. When a community is pilloried and battered, and then to apologize ad nauseum to Western powers who are doing their global lynching, gerrymandering, redlining, global pillaging, whatever, of land, labor, liberty, and life. And often the arsonists are also pretending to be the firefighters, or the poachers are becoming the gamekeepers. So we look at climate denial today, fake news, holograms, photoshopping, satire. Sometimes you even get these notice that McDonald's coffee is haram, and no one really checks it up. There's no one back it up with science. So that is, of course, fabricated, that McDonald's is using some pork grease and all this nonsense. But Harun Siddiqui compared Islamic attitude towards modern science and looks at the Christian right and sees that Muslims have been very kind in the embrace of different types of sciences. There's an interesting case of Rashid Ghannouchi in Tunisia in 2011, when the Arab Spring started. Rashid Ghannouchi had almost more than 37% of the votes, and the next four parties had less than the number of votes he got. He then consciously stepped down. But as he stepped down and became a celebrity in the West, only then did the BBC, the Independent, and the Economist apologize for fabricating news of cruelty on the part of Ghannouchi. So it was all fabricated. And so we ask ourselves, once a person gets then elected into a certain position, if that person not liked by the Western media and he doesn't step down, that apology would not be forthcoming. Also, the interesting thing about Noam Chomsky is saying that the US elections have been hacked by Israel and not by Russia. That's quite interesting. Now, there are two arguments for evolution, embracing evolution. Muhammad Hamidullah has studied, written on Islam for 50 years, a scholar from India who settled in France, and he made a strong argument for evolution. In fact, many of the other scholars we come across were actually that there's no place for evolution, but Hamidullah's argument seems quite persuasive. But I think that's not the issue, and I think our first speaker also speaks about the racism, that cultural racism that gets reflected in our understanding of evolution. Do the blacks look more like monkeys that we come from, or what are these type of very racist type of thinking within evolution? Hitler, of course, through his eugenic program that he got from the US, thought that you have the superior race, and that's why the Nazis start to exterminate anyone who's disabled and who didn't look perfect. But evolution in theory does not answer the larger questions of who am I, why am I here, is there a God, where do I stand in relation to the rest of creation, am I just a steward, what's the purpose of life? So the questions of ultimate purpose, ultimate meaning, values, and often we find in suicidal studies that it's actually meaning and values that heal. And if people have psychological inflexibility because they lack values and meaning. But we need to heal, and we need things to center us. And so we look at sometimes people say, so fine, Israel today has almost every major technological company in Tel Aviv. Israel today is the top in this type of medical research or that type of medical research. But does that lead to compassion? Does their position, the Nazi, how can I say, expertise in technology, does that lead to integrity and to coexistence? So those are some of the, and I think sometimes the hadith has taught us that even the shaitan can speak the truth. If even the devil tells you 1 + 1 is 2, you cannot deny that because it is the truth. The evil far supersedes good, and unfortunately sometimes a lot of other issues we need to look at. I believe that when the Quran says, وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا, that God created a cosmic computer, and there were many databases, and sometimes God gave access to some of these knowledges to some people that we've lost, whether it's the Aztecs or the pharaohs who built the pyramids. We cannot replicate that, or the Mayans. And I think sometimes God will release or give access to other people at other times. Many apples fell on people's heads. It was only Newton that came up with the theory of gravity, and many times people sat in a bathtub. It's Archimedes who came up with this theory of buoyancy. So it's God who decides to release at different times. But I think there will be more frameworks, and people will still have to discover much more of how animals spoke and how, what the jinn really are, the psychic beings, and many others, whether it's telepathy or dream interpretations. Al-Tusi, one of the great astronomers, was also good in astrology, and that was the same for Imam Shafi. So I think even astrology, not only astronomy, physics and metaphysics, there should be a place for that in future science. I've mentioned this about our own methodology. And then also I think there's a need for inclusive excellence in the application of scientific values and principles. Those who love only themselves are narcissists. Those who love only their family are nepotists. Only love only their friends are cronies. Only the wealthy and powerful, they're elitists. Those who root only for their own locality are parochialists. And those who prefer only people from their own religion are religious bigots. Nationalism has replaced sectarianism within the religion. So you may have had only Shia and Sunni, and now you have so many multiple nationalisms, and many of them are very sectarian in the way they do things. So the question for any scientist out there is what I am doing, is it narcissist, is it parochialist, or is it going to have some type of inclusive excellence? Those are a few. Thank you so much.